Oh, new cold open format. Here we go. On this episode of Eye on the Hawks, heads up, Owen. We are talking about the new addition to the Iowa quarterback room and how Indianapolis and the rest of the WNBA is getting ready for a full dose of Caitlin Clark fever. Roll that open.
Iowa's News Now Sports has your all-access pass to all things Hawkeyes. This is Eye on the Hawks, sponsored by University of Iowa Healthcare.
And welcome to our limited edition Brendan Sullivan edition of Eye on the Hawks. Mitch Fick, Owen Sebring, Mike Howell here. We will get to plenty of Caitlin Clark talk in a bit as she gets ready for her final preseason game and then her regular season WNBA debut and a lot of stuff to talk about. Owen's itinerary regarding Indianapolis here coming up there. But we will start with news that we kind of felt like fit the mold 16 days ago when Brendan Sullivan announced he was entering the transfer portal right after Deacon Hill said he was entering the transfer portal. Brendan Sullivan, the pride of Davison, Michigan, a former recruit for Tim Lester to Western Michigan that didn't pan out, ended up at Northwestern, now reunited as part of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Initial reactions and wild speculations about Brendan Sullivan coming to Iowa City.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. Like, did he entered the portal, I think, the day that we recorded the last podcast.
An hour after Deacon went in. That's and we talked about it in that pod of just
I feel like it was like 20 minutes after he went in.
It was very soon, to the point where it was like, there's probably not correlation, but maybe there was correlation. Then the day he comes in for his visit on Tuesday, Deacon also, as far as I could tell, left Iowa City for the last time. So I don't know. The point is, Brendan Sullivan's here. What do we think about him?
Got some serious ink, as he's shown on his commitment picture. I think that the biggest thing is I was digging through stuff yesterday just with him against the Hawkeyes. It's like, boy, in 2 games against Iowa, he took 12 sacks against Phil Parker's defense. So
he has 35 as a player at Northwestern, and 12 of them come in the 8 quarters he plays against his defense that he now has to practice against. Thankfully, he doesn't have to go up against in games.
However, what did I say? 30% of the touchdowns he threw as a Northwestern quarterback came against Phil Parker's defense as well. So if you can't beat him, join him. But at the same time, definitely some good experience that Iowa likes to bring in there and serves in the backup spot.
It's just something they had to do, get another quarterback. We have a freshman quarterback coming in this summer, Rezar. You don't want Marco and Rezar being your 2 backups if Cade has another injury. If everything works out like a Hawkeye fan wants it to be, Sullivan will only take backup snaps in blowouts. If there are any, I don't think there actually were any last year that the Hawkeyes were on the receiving end of blowouts. But if Cade does suffer another injury, which he has for the past 2 seasons he's played, at least you have an experienced backup who can go in. He can throw the ball around. He's mobile. He can run the ball. So it's a good pickup.
The upgrade, so to speak, for QB2, and again, this is a guy that I think you bring in that has the ability to push. I mean, Cade's one, and that's in stone, but it's a guy that can hopefully elevate the entire room because he's got 13 games in the Big Ten. I think he's started 8 games in the league and has shown that he can be a pretty darn good quarterback. I mean, he throws for 81 yards there at Wrigley, but nobody was doing anything on offense on either side of the ball there at Wrigley. And you read a lot about his toughness too, but this is a guy who, Deacon comes in last year as a transfer. He's been in a Big Ten program for a couple of years, but he hasn't taken any snaps. But the hope is that, if something like Cade going down with an ACL happens, okay, well, at least he's been in the room. He's got those 1 snaps. That's something I talked about quite a bit. It's like, well, he's had all this time with the 1s in spring and then the fall after Cade goes down with the quad. Mm-hmm. Well, now you're bringing in a guy who has that and then some. This guy has started in the Big Ten. He has excelled in some situations in the Big Ten and has excelled against what I think we all maybe a little bit biasedly consider one of the best defenses, not just in the league, but in the entire country. So it just elevates that number 2 position to where now, God forbid, Cade does make 3 times a charm and go down again. Now the backup you're throwing in there isn't just a guy who's had a lot of run with the 1s. This is a guy who's played and won Big Ten games before. That's a huge, huge positive.
Yeah, he was a guy who finished 2nd in the Big Ten West, right? I mean, Northwestern would have been in the Big Ten championship if they had
came down to that game at Wrigley, really.
Yeah. And around.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are assuming that Cade plays the entire season, right? Or if he's healthy. Yeah. And I think even regardless, challenge him. Like, what challenge never hurt anyone.
Iron sharpens iron. They say that in that building a lot.
Yeah, so like if he has someone who's pushing, and if Brendan Sullivan's better come game day, like why wouldn't you play him? Why wouldn't he start? I hope there's an open competition, and I think Cade is better when he's healthy, and hopefully we see that to fruition. But If he does come in and beat him out, like, he should probably start. But I just don't see that happening. I just wanted to say it just because, don't give Cade the number one role just because he's been there.
Mike's a big meritocracy guy.
Yeah.
You get what you earn. That's a saying they got down on 42nd Street as well.
Yeah.
You get what you earn.
It is just, I think that this is, as much as, some people from Northwestern and Nebraska were kind of roasting Iowa fans like, oh, this is the biggest portal pickup that you guys get a backup quarterback. But this is a room that desperately needs a backup quarterback. I mean, I just don't, sorry to say it, but I just don't see any way that Cade finishes the year without missing some time with an injury. He's just a guy that, God bless him, he's just kind of become prone to injury. He's almost made of glass at this point. And so I think that it's a quarterback room that they need to have a guy that's able to step in there and has some experience. So it's one of the teams in the Big Ten, if not in Power 5 football, that at this point in time needs a solid backup quarterback the most.
And it comes down, it's the perfect fit, in my opinion. And it's within the realm of, like, Cam Ward wasn't going to transfer to Iowa. Dylan Gabriel wasn't going to transfer to Iowa. Ty Thompson there for like 60 hours in February may have maybe considered Iowa and then went to Tulane. Like, you can't ask for much more of a fit. This is a guy that Tim Lester already has history with because he tried to recruit him to Kalamazoo, so he must fit the offense and that scheme. So it's exactly what you need. The hope for Deacon was, hey, he's got a previous relationship with Bud Mayer, a guy who's been in his corner since he was 16 years old, a couple years experience running at a Division I Big Ten program, gets all this time with the ones. This has just elevated that. So you're in a better position if Cade does go down again. But speaking of Cade, it sounds, we've heard even just from today, Kirk's at an event in the Quad Cities, I believe, talking about he'll be ready for June. If you want to play rec softball right now, look up Cade McNamara because he's ready to go. He and the school shared some images like that. That's a dude who's ready to go right now. Lace him up, put him in.
Did you read the comments to this, Mitch?
So listen, there's a lot of folks
you didn't get there.
Yeah, there's a lot of ribbing from teammates about that dive was unnecessary and also unsuccessful. But here's what I say, because there's a lot of comments too of just like, dude, we're trying to win a natty, we're trying to win a conference championship. Let's not go all out for softball. This kid has lost most of the last 2 years to a brace or crutches or something like that. Cade McNamara, get out there and live your life, dude. We'll worry about the fall in the fall, but man, have some fun. Have some fun, and he certainly did. He's got a 15-second mark of this, if you're watching on YouTube, of the softball game highlights they had on the practice field. He does a high step like a guy who hasn't high stepped in about 2 years and is just giddy to be out there having some fun with the boys. Quinn Schulte with a backwards hat. He'll never win a Super Bowl with a backwards hat. Yeah, the Colin Cowherd take. But it's just fun to see stuff like this. We sit here and speculate about what this kid in the portal is going to mean or what this kid leaving is going to mean. These guys are just having fun at the end of spring ball. Sebastian Castro with great running ability on the bases. It's just fun to see the fun, and great to see Cade out there having a good time too.
Yeah. Oh, was that Drew Stevens swinging a bat?
It was, yeah.
They know how to swing a bat down in South Carolina.
I thought it was Coop. Oh yeah, and Higgins had a jersey. That's right. Jay has like a personalized jersey. I think it was a Make-A-Wish Iowa jersey, which was super cool to see. But so Cade McNamara looking like he's in good spirits and in good shape. And has been doing some hunting too. He's been sharing some turkey. It's turkey season out there in Iowa. So seen a lot of people out there who are hunting. If you're listening, you're a hunter. A lot of are having some record setting or PRs, I guess, when it comes to
PRs.
To turkey. My cousin's had a good one. I know a couple other guys who are having a good season. So hats off to the hunters.
One more thing on Brendan Sullivan before I move on to other transfer news. I put up his transfer.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about his running ability.
Oh, no. Just other transfer like transactions. I don't. Transactions is the wrong word, but it kind of is the right word. I put up his stats of the 4 starts he had for Northwestern last year. He split them, lost to Iowa, Nebraska, beat Howard and Maryland. 265 yards was his best game against Maryland. 2 touchdowns, 0 INTs. I wanted to look this up. Do you know the last time an Iowa quarterback threw for over 265 yards?
It'd probably be Stanley.
That's what I thought, but it's not.
Stanley never broke 250.
No.
Do it at some point.
Someone before.
It'd be Spencer probably.
Spencer did it, yeah.
Against Rutgers.
That Rutgers against Northwestern.
Nope. Against Maryland, 2021, that Friday night game,
Yeah.
he threw for 283, and then he did it once in the 2020 season. I think against either Northwestern or Purdue. It was Northwestern.
Yeah, that's Northwestern's the one where he threw 50 times.
And then they lost by a touchdown.
No, we're over that. Don't worry. The reason I thought these were his rushing stats, Brendan Sullivan's, if you're watching on the stream, is because he had a long touchdown run against Howard which was that
That's
shows
right.
you he's got a little wiggle. I know that there was some talk online too about he takes too many sacks. We talked about the 35 in 12 games, 12 against Iowa. His per drop back sack rate is something like 33% or something like that. Like it's high, but if you want to go ahead and throw all the blame for Brendan Sullivan getting sacked a bunch of times on Brendan Sullivan, go ahead in your pool and do that.
He had 38 yards rushing against Howard and 56 against Maryland. So, I mean, pretty good rushing stats. Yeah, you got to love that.
If there's anything Iowa fans will take from their quarterback, it's a quarterback that can move a little bit. A little bit of an epilogue to this, too, or an addendum. Northwestern did get, I suppose you want to call it a replacement for Brendan today. Mike Wright committed to the Wildcats. This is a dude who could end up starting for them here in 2024 for Dave Braun and company. He's a former starter. He started, I think, 11 games at Vanderbilt and 3 this past year at Mississippi State. So this is a dude who kind of doing what Iowa is doing in some way, shape, or form. Hey, let's get in a guy with experience who started other spots. They just did it with Ben Bryant last year. The reason Brendan was starting a few games there in Evanston last year is because Ben Bryant, who was a Cincinnati transfer, came in, got hurt, and so Brendan stepped in. But that's the age of the quarterback.
Name of the game in college football this year, now.
It's just get your guys that have started some games. Speaking of transfer portal news, all the best and gig 'em to Jake Bostic, who announced yesterday as well that he is committed to Texas A&M. From what I read, he was on a visit to Oxford, to Ole Miss, the day before, and then cuts over to College Station and sounded like he just an ultimate commitment shot. Fantastic commitment.
Yeah, you got to wear the cowboy hat. I don't know why this has kind of surprised me. I know A&M hasn't lived up to the hype. They've recruited very well, but they haven't won more than like 7 games a year down there.
New coaching staff with Mike Elko coming over from Duke, and it sounded like, again, just reading reaction from bloggers and the guys that follow recruiting, sounded like that was the immediate connection was with Elko and the receivers coach and those guys there that we got that he felt like that was the spot. I think we got some severe weather going on. We've got our weather team off to the side if you're watching the stream, turning lights and getting things going. Garrett, if you ever need us to be quiet about anything, a silent thumbs up. I have no answer and no context to what we're doing. So we'll just continue on. But so Jake Bostic, moving on to College Station. And again, all the best to the kid. The only parallel we do have, for those that are concerned about anything, Floyd County's got a confirmed tornado that we're watching here. That's over on the west.
We need to wrap up then?
The state. Yeah. This might be truncated, so just stick with us. But the only parallel or like similarity I could think of an Iowa receiver leaving and going to a program maybe of this comparable size, and maybe it's because it's only Texas. Derek Willis. I don't know if you remember him.
No, I do.
10 years ago, 2014, he was a redshirt freshman. He had a touchdown against Ball State. Really didn't do much else. Then transferred to Texas Tech, where I believe Nick Shimonek, another former Iowa guy, had also transferred, and they played together. And Derek was in the league for a little bit. I think he's a Rock Island guy. But that's the only thing I could really think of that's comparable. Hey, if Jacob Bostic makes it out of the league or makes it to the league out of Texas A&M, all power to him. This is a great kid that we enjoyed the minimal time we got with.
It's a bummer, though. If he does go and play, like, you got to think. I mean, if it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit.
Yeah, I get you.
But it's another wide receiver. Like, you think of Charlie Jones and Tyrone Tracy, who didn't really fit in this Iowa offense, but then they go out and be studs somewhere else.
Yeah.
We'll have to see, though, about him.
Haven't seen any other commitments, though, have we? I mean, I know Deacon Hill hasn't committed anywhere.
I was just on the page, and no one really else has committed.
Neil Vanderbush, I don't think that I've
Johnny
seen.
Pascuzzi still.
Pascuzzi is withdrawn from the portal. Saw about that today. So, and he's a walk-on too. So there's been a lot of discussion. I don't know where this evolved from, and a lot of it too is also with the women's basketball side as we kind of transition into that too, because they're in the hunt for a possible transfer there, who used to be like a top 20 recruit. When did the fan base become so concerned with scholarship count?
Yeah.
People were like, they can't bring her in. Lisa doesn't have a scholarship to give. Like,
yeah, it's
they'll
just
probably figure it out, right?
it is interesting. I mean, these coaches do have to like cut down the scholarships, but they're going to do it. Like if they didn't think like they could bring on another scholarship and they're going to be over, they wouldn't bring in another person. I know they're hosting another recruit in the women's basketball.
We're not here to audit. The fans are not here to audit the scholarship count. They've got it. They've got it under control.
Yeah.
Do we need to sign off at all, Garrett? Do we need to wrap this up? He's still trying to figure this out. So we're just going to let's just get to Caitlin Clark stuff as quick as we can. Let's start with the week you've got planned on your way. Nobody is putting more miles in and MMJ and the bejesus out of Caitlin Clark coverage like Owen Sebring has the last few months.
Yeah, so I'll be heading out east to Indianapolis again. Feels like Big Ten football championship season again, heading out to Indianapolis. But I'll be out there covering Caitlin's first home regular season game with the Indiana Fever. So they're going to be hosting the Liberty? I've already forgotten who they even play in their first home regular season.
They are hosting Liberty next Thursday, I believe.
And so I'll be heading out on Monday. Tuesday is when Caitlin has her first regular season game on the road in Connecticut. So I'll be out there. I would have to imagine that the Fever are going to have another watch party like they did for the WNBA draft, have something in the arena where fans can come and watch, and they could about fill out that place, I imagine, just for a road game watch party. So we'll be out there covering that on Tuesday. Wednesday, I'd imagine they'll be getting back in, get some practice video, get some stuff with Caitlin, hopefully in person, and then Thursday have her first home regular season game at Gamebridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. Trying to touch base with a few folks. I've been making some calls. Nothing confirmed yet, but I tried reaching out to. Well, first off, I made this connection yesterday. Just that there's another Doyle who's had a name in Indianapolis is Kathleen, and she of course was drafted by the Fever a few years ago out of Iowa, and so I've tried to touch base with her, and Dallas Clark, another former Hawkeye who's made a name for himself in Indianapolis.
Was that a Jack Doyle reference? I was trying to figure out who.
The
tight end for
Greg Doyle.
Oh my God!
Spelled differently.
Because the tight end Jack Doyle for the Colts. I was like, that's a really deep cut. I don't know if anyone's going to get that.
I was trying to figure out, and I was like, yeah, there it is. Anyway, I looked this up. So her final preseason game is tonight at home against the Dream.
Fever Dream.
Guess the cheapest ticket to get into this preseason game
in Indianapolis?
Through StubHub. It's in Indianapolis. The cheapest ticket just to get in the door.
If it's over $200, I'll be pissed off.
$175.
It's $4. It was a trick question.
Oh man!
Kudos to
got us.
Kudos to the Fever secondary market. So the opener in Connecticut against the Sun next Tuesday, $81 is the cheapest ticket on StubHub. Just a single ticket. I think it's like $74 if you get two. That home opener against the Fever or against the Liberty that Thursday that you'll be there, $24 is the cheapest one. So that's cool to see. Then you go to later that week, the Liberty, the Fever go to the Liberty in New York. That cheapest ticket's $80. But then back home against the Fever or against the Sun, I'm so used to saying against the Hawkeye or
the Suns.
But the tickets are $5 for that next game too at home. So kudos to the fans in Indy making the secondary market halfway affordable. The one game later this month where they go to Las Vegas to play, hopefully Kate Martin and Megan Gustafson and Kia Stokes and the Las Vegas Aces, $112 to get in the door. Wow. So that's the most expensive. But I think we're so used to seeing mortgage payments worth of ticket prices. It is very refreshing to see, hey, $4 and go see what is still probably the hottest ticket in town and stuff streaming on Disney Plus now, along with ESPN and all that. Just really cool to see this whole evolution. And charter jets, about time.
If you're in the viewing area, or you follow me on X, or just follow us on our website, here's my hope for this upcoming WNBA season. Because during Caitlin's first game in Dallas, I showed every single basket that she made. Can we make a promise through this season to show every single basket that she makes in a preseason and regular season game? A highlight of every single make.
On this program or on our
Can
TV?
we make a promise?
Can I make the promise? Do you want to? It's more in my hands than it is anybody else's.
Do you want to do that?
I would kind of like to do that, or at least it would be fun at the end of the season to be like, okay, if you've watched us, you've seen every single basket that she's made this past season. So anyway, that's
you,
all.
Man. I'm not gonna. Don't come at me if he doesn't fulfill this promise.
We're going hard with Indiana Fever coverage.
So our boss, our news director, just go back to Kate Martin. She reached out to the Aces because
nobody is watching the Las Vegas Aces roster like Kristen Hamilton, news director of KGAN.
She reached out just because there's 12 people on the roster right now, so everyone is assuming she's on it, but nothing's official until the season starts. And that's basically what the person said is nothing will be finalized until Monday. So keep an eye out on Monday.
Yeah, it will be very evident when that time comes, just because both Kate and Caitlin are so heavily on social media. I mean, there was such a huge deal that they made out of it when she was drafted. That it's like, they'll let us know if anybody lets us know when and if she makes the team. So the only thing right now, as I've been saying all along, it looks good. She seems like she's playing well, and seems like if the team is we've got a Zoom interview planned with her on Monday. So it's like if the team is making and coordinating Zoom interviews for her still, and if she's making that trip out to Washington, D.C. with the team right now, and she's going to be playing in the game on Saturday against the Puerto Rican national team, things are looking good. She's gotten down to this point, so she's got a pretty good chance of making the team, but you just don't want to count your chickens until they're
This
hatched.
is no shot at her too, but if the player, bench player 12 on a 12-person roster are even, wouldn't you take the one that's a lot more marketable, who has a lot of fans, I feel like there's a lot of hype around Cade, and I'm not saying that's why she's on the roster, but I'm saying if she's comparable over a 12-year veteran or something like that, wouldn't that be the smart play?
I mean, ideally you'd want somebody who gives you a better chance to win. Not
But
to say that Cade doesn't, but it's like if you want to give it to the more talented player, I would think as a coach.
No, I agree with that, but on a basketball roster, usually you don't go 12 deep, in any sport, unless it's a blowout. I'm just saying that 12th roster spot, if that's what she's fighting for, if they're similar, I'm not saying she's, her talent level is way down. She can obviously play in the WNBA,
There's
but
probably no player being mentioned more and no fan base in the mentions more on Ace's social media than Iowa fans and Kate Martin stands. I don't know if they are looking at that, and or Hawkeye fans and Kate Martin stands, I should say. They
probably takes a little, it probably doesn't have a huge impact, but I just wanted to, throw it out there.
They've got to know.
Yeah.
I mean, Iowa was one of the most talked about teams across any sport over the last 3 months, and when you've got they drafted her in the second round for a reason too, and I don't think it was just because the fans like her. I think we've watched what she did for almost 140 starts in Iowa City, and there's a reason why she was held in such high esteem and wasn't a semifinalist or a finalist for a National Player of the Year award, and all Big Ten performer. I mean, there's something she's doing right beyond just basketball skill. I think she's somebody that benefits the locker room in a lot of ways.
I will feel a little bit if at the end if she does end up getting cut, because it'll feel a little bit like, I don't know if the Aces again are hanging on to her longer just to get more people talking about it, where they're stringing her along just to be like, well, let's keep her on the roster as long as we can because we know that that's going to bring in a lot of eyeballs. But
I'll let you ask the Las Vegas brass about
the
that.
converse to that is the Aces are maybe outside of the Fever, of course, the Aces are the one team in the league where they don't need a whole lot of hype around them. They're not the Washington Mystics.
Champions.
Needs a lot more people talking. The Aces are two-time defending champs. They've got all the stars in the league on that roster. They're the team that everybody has already been talking about going back to last season. So it's not like they need help from Kate Martin to get people talking about them.
Speaking about talking about Kate Martin, her and Megan Gustafson are at the White House, even though they weren't on the team last year, which is fine. They're not in any of the official doings.
Why'd you have to add it?
Well, I just, people watching it, they're like, wait, they're new to the team. Why are they at, because they won the WNBA last year. Yeah. But, of course, if the team's going, they're going to go and check out the White House, which why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've never been there. It seems like a cool place. So
all of Washington, all those monuments. I was just out there last week for an honor flight, which if you have a veteran in your life that wants to get out there, please get a hold of the Eastern Iowa Honor Flight. They're awesome. But it's just so cool to be around there. There's so many monuments and so much history all around there, and there's some powerful moments. So, yeah, you get in the White House, you get the chance. Doesn't matter if you were on the roster 6 months ago or not. Get out there and enjoy it.
And regardless if you're a native Iowan, I mean, the native Iowan that is on the roster, she does get a chance to be a part of those ceremonies. Kia Stokes, a Linmar grad, has been a part of those two-time defending state WNBA champion teams. I'm used to saying state champs or national champs, but no, WNBA champs.
We got to get used to talking about these girls as if they're not from Eastern Iowa anymore, because they're playing for somebody other than Eastern Iowa or somewhere in Eastern Iowa.
So it's she'll get a chance to be part of all the ceremonies today. So good on her. Iowa fans as a whole got to stand up and be proud of Kia Stokes for all she's done in this league. She's getting to be. I mean, she's a veteran now. She's she's been around a while. It's funny thinking about her. She's been around a lot longer than even Megan Gustafson. I mean, she's been in the league, probably coming up on 8, 9, 10 years, something like that.
It doesn't feel like that long ago, but we were talking about this yesterday. Bruce Dahl, longtime head coach at Dyke New Hartford and other spots around there, announced he was retiring, and you pulled out, I won't say you found the video of him at AGWSR, I believe it was, back in 2009, and that video may as well have been shot on a TV that has bunny ear antennas. It's standard definition, 4x3. Just it is old looking, and it's 15 years old. But that's the kind of stuff that we have of Kia's high school career that I shot at Wells Fargo and over at Linn-Mar, and that wasn't that long ago. Mm-hmm. But it looks so
I remember
long
it
ago,
too well.
The quality of video. But we're all veterans in our own ways, aren't we?
It's too recent for this
of the business.
Too recent for this to look like the moon landing footage, basically.
It shocks me how old some of this 13, 14, 15-year-old footage looks, because it's not that long ago, but 15 years ago we didn't have these things.
And it's largely just due to, I mean, again, we're talking TV specs here, but when I was dubious when TV stations were making that switch from standard to high definition, I was like, who cares? It's not that big a deal. But that's where you start seeing that big difference in quality, is when stations made the switch. I don't know when KGA ended. I know
2012.
I was working at KCRG when they made the switch, and I think that was 2010 when they switched over.
We were a little behind. We made the switch to Avid and the system we use now, and it was right around the end of spring football in 2012, because I remember one of my first things I put together was the 2012 recap. I remember there was a kid playing quarterback at Iowa. He was the third or fourth string out of Franklin, Tennessee, and he had a couple throws where I'm just like, that's a little different. It's a little better. And a few years later, C.J. Beathard did all right for himself at Iowa.
There we go.
So I was first. That's all I wanted to say. It's just I was first. But I have those highlights shot in high definition.
So a lot of talk about Caitlin being on Disney Plus and ESPN2 next Tuesday.
Yeah.
The Aces will also be right after their game at 9 o'clock against Phoenix Mercury. So you can get a little 4-hour block of former Hawkeyes. Hopefully Megan gets some playing time. I'm not sure if
I'd imagine we'll see a lot of Megan. She was a sixth player in a lot of her stops in her career, and she will probably be something similar. I think that she'll be the 6th to 8th option, something like that. And so we'll see a lot of Megan playing, even though she is on a roster with a lot more talented players than when she was in Phoenix. I am really hoping we see some of Kate Martin in that exhibition game. I mean, the good thing about an exhibition game is that, like,
this is the first regular season game I was talking about on Tuesday.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. In that case, no, we probably won't see much of Kate Martin in that game, but we will see her on Saturday when they have their exhibition game, because, I mean, even the Fever, we saw them just empty the bench at some points and get everybody in there. So we'll see a little bit of Kate on Saturday, and we'll have those highlights right here on Iowa's News Now. You better believe we're going to be watching that one pretty close. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch much of Caitlin's first exhibition game. We haven't talked about this on the pod, but it was just so evidently clear right away that it's like, boy, I mean, again, Indiana's trying to give her a little bit of space, put some of the reserves out on the floor, get everybody some playing time, but that is a very different team when Caitlin Clark is not on the floor.
I watched the highlights because I have this rule that I just don't like watching preseason sports. We've been talking about it. Some of the newer fans at our station who are watching Caitlin, I'm like, this game doesn't matter. I don't really want to watch it. And pay to watch it, that's a different level too. But yeah, I mean, like, there were some questions, mostly about, like, if she could separate, how effective was she going to be with different ball, stuff like that. And I always just thought, like, she's a shooter. She's going to shoot. She's going to shoot well too. I think the shooting percentage is going to go up because she won't shoot as much as she did in college. Yeah. But she always belonged, and that's why she was picked number 1 overall. And would she have 12 in the first quarter, or was it even
11
higher?
In the first quarter, 16 by halftime.
Yeah, just not surprised.
Yeah, which and that is maybe one of the few things that it's going to be an interesting storyline as we go along, is that she got in some foul trouble in the second half and had to sit out a lot of the third and fourth quarters. So I don't know if that's going to be an adjustment for her in the league as well. But I've never been a guy who's tracked plus or minus with basketball players, just because it's more of a hockey stat. But for those not in the know, when a player is on the court, they get a plus if a basket is scored for their team, and a minus if it's scored against their team. For a while, Caitlin was plus 11, I think, during that game, which was the highest of anybody on the floor. And on either team. She finished the game, I think, plus 6, I believe. So, which I think there were a couple players on the wings that were a little bit higher than that. But regardless, I mean, it's just that is the most telling stat to show that this is the difference maker when they're on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't believe you don't care about the preseason.
But it's Caitlin.
Yeah,
Mike.
I know. I might watch tonight.
I'm in the same boat
because I got a league pass now, so I didn't have it was it last Friday? Whatever Friday she played, I didn't really care to pay for it, but I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, I think preseason football is like the worst thing in the world. Like, why do we even do it? It's just not like you don't even get like a.
Because Hard Knocks needs something.
I guess so.
Because
I guess that's probably the best part of it.
Sometimes that's the only place we're going to get B-roll of former Hawkeyes on the field. When Coy Cronk is on the Jaguars roster, there's very few other times we're going to get a chance to get some VO of Coy Cronk.
It is. It's a good chance for that kind of stuff too. And obviously, there's player evaluations. And It's not just a chance to get video of people. That's one of my favorite memories of my first go around here was going to the Chiefs preseason game against the Bucs in 2011 because Adrian Claiborne was in his second year. It was at Arrowhead, so we drove down to Kansas City, Jared Aarons and I. Adrian Claiborne's second year with Tampa Bay, and then Tony Moeaki was in his second year with Kansas City, and Ricky Stanzi had just been drafted, and you have all those Stanza City Chiefs fans that were so hyped up about Ricky being down there, and it was cool. We have more B-roll of Ricky Stanzi in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform than we'll ever need, but we just sat on the sidelines and just shot all the NFL video we could have wanted, and I still remember the roar of the crowd when Stanzi scrambled for like 7 yards. Like it's those fun moments, and again, as you got a bunch of guys that just graduated from Iowa that are in rookie mini camps now and all that, like this is their one shot to prove they belong or throw on an NFL uniform and maybe have an opportunity to show something and spark a dream. And so that, Mike, is why the preseason matters.
Now I feel bad. Yeah, no, all the guys trying to make a squad, I get it from them. It's just as a fan, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I'm the same. You know, I'm a huge Broncos fan, but it's like I am not going to tune in to watch a Broncos preseason game just because it doesn't matter in the slightest to me. Like I'll care when the regular season starts.
But next Tuesday, sign me up because it's must-watch TV in my opinion. I'm excited to see just the ratings, especially during like NBA and NHL playoffs. NHL playoffs have been amazing so far. So like how much of that audience, and then I think some select series from the NBA, like the Timberwolves. I've been
how about those Minnesota teams?
Garza got in one of the games.
Luka Garza going to get a ring? Ant Edwards.
And that Knicks series, even though it's 2-0, I've been glued to. So like, how much is that going to deter ratings? Are they going to be higher than the NBA playoffs? We'll have to see.
It'll be fun.
Do you guys think, if you were laying down some money on it, do you think that Kate Martin makes the 12-person roster for the Aces?
I do. Yeah. I would put money on it, yeah.
I think I would too at this point.
I wouldn't because I don't want to be part of a betting market that's clocking roster spots in the league.
That's a good point.
No, she picked in the second round. Her resume speaks for itself. I think her work ethic and her presence does that too. I think she's a good fit.
At the start of camp, I would have said no, but after seeing other players get cut before her and after seeing the Aces take her in the second round, I think that is a very telling thing. I think that it is the biggest surprise to me, I think, is like if we're looking at some Iowa State stuff here, that Ashley Jones has not been able to stick in the league. You know, she didn't even make a 15, 16-person roster. She didn't even make a camp roster this year, and she's, a two-time Big 12 Player of the Year. I mean, one of the all-time greats in Power 5 women's basketball. And so, I hope the best for her. I'd love to see Ashley Jones make it on a roster somewhere, but she hasn't been able to stick around. So it's like, boy, if Ashley can't make it, can Kate Martin make it? But I think that sometimes maybe we as Hawkeye reporters, Hawkeye fans, forget that Kate Martin was just playing behind Caitlin Clark, and she could have really been a player that averaged maybe 23 points a game if she was allowed to, if Caitlin wasn't around, if she was the star of that team. And so
much
she's
of
got
it
a lot of
fit
talent.
too. Luka Garza is a National Player of the Year who is just scratching and clawing to get any sort of minutes in the association to go to the G League, and he's unbelievable and unstoppable. Just that it depends on what scenario you're in, where you're playing, what, talent is talent is talent. I mean, anybody in the league can probably go off for any amount of stuff, but there's also, it's just fit and opportunity and all that stuff. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. All right. Final thoughts on anything? We've meandered around a little bit. You can, of course, watch all that WNBA stuff Tuesday on Disney Plus, and then stay tuned for the season finale of X-Men '97. Mike and I have been deep into our Fox Kids childhood, catching up on that.
Yeah.
My last thought was just when you go to the WNBA website, it's interesting because when you go to the schedule, they have the spread just already for next Tuesday's games, just bigger than anything. Can you, if you don't know this already, do you guess what the Fever's betting spread is for that Fever Sun game?
I have no idea.
Are they favored by 6?
They're underdogs by 5.5.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So by FanDuel. So that's interesting to look at kind of the outlook. They've got 2 number 1 picks in a row. I don't know. That seems like I'm, getting in my betting mind. I might take the Fever, but don't take my
I
advice.
have zero perspective on what spread should be in the WNBA.
Yeah.
So
I'm there
you
too.
Told me any number, I'd be like, yeah.
That's why I thought, even if they should be underdogs, why FanDuel wouldn't just be like, all right, Fever -3. I think people would just bet on them just because Caitlin Clark's on their team, but who knows?
Yeah, if it were a different team, I would maybe say otherwise, but I guess I don't know much about the Connecticut Sun. The one thing holding the Fever back is that Kelsey Mitchell, Ohio State grad, has not been able to play yet in the preseason. She's doubtful for their preseason game tonight as well, so a lot's going to depend on whether she's available or not by next week. But the last thing I just want to add is if you're somebody who is a viewer in Eastern Iowa, go ahead and keep following us for a lot of WNBA coverage because we have a lot more trips planned beyond this next week's home opener. We're talking about future games for the rest of the regular season, talking about possibly a trip out to Vegas for when the Fever play the Aces out there, just with all their Iowa connections. Nothing in stone yet, but we are going to be a very WNBA-heavy station for these next 6 months and hopefully beyond that as well.
We do news and weather sometimes too. So yeah, we're just getting started. This is usually the time of year, particularly on the sports side too. You've got, state soccer's coming up in a little bit. You got baseball and softball going on, but then you get into some of the doldrums of summer, and you're looking for other stuff to cover outside of Colonel's baseball, and they're doing pretty well so far. But fun to get outside the box and do some cool stuff like that too. Hitting the road and taking this show wherever the effect and the Fever may go. So. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, as always, on social media and everything like that. Keep following us, keep supporting us. For Mike and Owen, I'm Mitch. See you next time on Eye on the Hawks.